Welcome to Light Technology Development. We are going to explain and talk about the Graverty production unit, which is basically a unit development of a design structure that builds a volume of gravity. Now, building a volume of gravity in a spaceship and having it manipulated by magnetic fields is something which we are also developing and working on. The volume of gravity dictates the environment in which you are living in. Now, the volume of gravity, if we use the knowledge of creational nature and science to try and match the environment of space, the only environment that I know of that will match and be very similar is deep ocean research and deep ocean waters. And because we are going to be dealing with a weightless environment that deals with mild gravity, we're going to use and utilize the very things in nature that have already developed in cellular structure in deep oceans and deep seas. Now, they are developed and designed to cope with deep pressure. They are developed and designed to live in all kinds of environments very similar to space. They deal with weightlessness, they deal with a condition of being up and down, they deal with direction, they deal with navigation, they deal with floating around. And they know the directions in which they're going to go. So by treating space and the volume of gravity and the density of gravity and matching a volume, let's say, of liquid water inside the volume of the ship. Now, we're not going to be dealing with physical water inside the ship, obviously. We're going to treat the volume of gravity like a volume of liquid water. So all life that exists in liquid water and a weightless environment with mild gravity effects, it means that when we build the volume of gravity device, we can tailor the amount of gravity that's accepted. Now, we can either have it in various forms. We can have it in a volume that matches water conditions, or a volume of water conditions. So all cellular structures and all life of, let's say, shrimp and crab and crayfish and fish, and all creatures that live in water and liquid will be able to manage, let's say, a small galley. And because there is a birth rate, and because there is that we can manage the birth rate and we can manage the growth of certain foods, it means that plants like seaweed, which we can eat and we can dry and create very good seafood from. We can also have shrimp, we can have crab, a crayfish, we can have fish. And when you're in space, you can have quite a nice cuisine. So you've got your seaweeds, of edible seaweeds, you've got your living creatures that are used to low-level gravity and weightless environments. We've got a ton of cellular structures. We have things like let's have a think. You've got things like algae, which you can grow in great quantity and great number, and if it's processed and dried, then it can be a very good protein food source, or it can be a very good vitamin food source, depending on the algae that you're trying to develop and trying to grow. Now, you'll need a little bit of all of this to be able to feed all your fish and your shrimp and your crayfish and various other seaweed plants. But there's also the freshwater development of freshwater foods. So you've got freshwater, you've got all the foods that grow in freshwater, you've got plant life that are used to weightless environments and use it for their development process of growing. There's a load of greenery that you can grow, which will grow on a surface of a liquid. It will also grow under the surface. So you can have it in containment and still have it growing inside the liquids. All this food source is valuable because you can manage it whilst you're out in space. And because of it, the volume of gravity machine, right, it's going to be a device that manages particles, and they will deal with particles of density. And then we're going to produce a chamber that will produce particles. Then we're going to magnetically control these particles into a ball of a volume, and this ball of volume will become dense the closer you push all the particles together. And because it becomes dense and produces a volume of gravity, then we can tailor where this volume of gravity is going to fit, right? You can have it around the whole of the ship if you wanted to, and build a tube all the way around the ship, right? And you can have it at a certain size and a certain volume, and you can fill it full of particles, and you can compress these particles into densities. Now, the particles that you could possibly choose are the tiny little dense particles, which we know exist in creation, and you can call them in and then push them together to create a volume of mild gravity. Now, you've got to include the weight of the ship, which is already a volume of gravity in itself, and then the inclusion of extra gravity, which becomes part of the ship, and the crew, and the volume of some water that you're going to have in the ship, and also the water production that you will build up over time because of the exhaust of the technology producing water and air. And all of it over time is built up into a volume of a weight. Now, you can tailor the volume of weight, which means you can exhaust out into space any overproduction and keep the balance of your volume of the overall weight of the ship. And because we can do this in physical reality, and if it wasn't for the Hadron Collider, right, as a science team, proving that when you put particles together in a tube, produces a volume of weight, right, and they manipulate their particles with a magnetic field, it also means that the development of independent gravity production can also go forward and be placed and implemented into spaceships. Something that they said that would never happen. But it's something that I know that will happen. So it was science that was disbelieved before in the past, and it's now science which is now proven to be of value and proven to be of worth to place inside the volume of an already existing gravity, which is the ship. You can increase the gravity, build a low volume of gravity, and if we tailor it properly and if we develop the science correctly, we should be able to get to something which is not Earth gravity, because it's very heavy and very dense in its weight. And we don't want to produce too much gravity to be able to dent space too much, which will then create a resistance towards the craft. And because it is physically possible now, the independent scientists of independent groups are going to produce this new science and include it in all of their technological developments.